So we heard Steve Singer talking a little bit about reform in New Orleans, and we're going to have, this panel right here is going to talk about perspectives on structural reform in places throughout the country. And so let me briefly just introduce our esteemed moderator today. So Professor Carol Steiker is the Henry J. Friendly Professor of Law, the law school. She spent a lot of time at Harvard. She went to college here, went to law school here. She was president of the Harvard Law Review. At the time she became president of the Harvard Law Review, she was only the second female in its then 99-year history to be president of the Harvard Law Review. She then clerked for Justice Skelly Wright on the D.C. Circuit, and for Judge Skelly Wright on the D.C. Circuit, and for Justice Thurgood Marshall. She joined the Public Defender Service for the District of Columbia, and then she joined the law school here, where she's become, without very much argument, the nation's sort of top scholar. Her and her brother, the nation's top scholar on the death penalty and other criminal justice issues. So, turn it over to Professor Steiker.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here with all of these interesting and experienced and thoughtful and inspirational lawyers and scholars to talk about the future of indigent defense. This is a fabulous panel for you. They said they don't want to be introduced in detail, despite the fact I'm not doing anything, and I was just introduced in detail. But let me just say that we have two tremendously experienced head public defenders. First, we'll hear from Anthony Benedetti, who's the chief counsel here of the Massachusetts Committee for Public Counsel Services, the statewide defender organization. He's a longtime Massachusetts lawyer before being the chief. Before being the chief counsel. He had all kinds of other roles in the CPCS hierarchy, including, line attorneys, tried many cases, and I think he's got a really thoughtful perspective, particularly because I don't know how many of you are from Massachusetts or are familiar with the changes that Massachusetts has gone through, but in the past few years we've had some enormous structural changes here in Massachusetts, which Anthony Benedetti can talk to us about and give us his perspective on what we can learn from those changes. Robert Berukowitz, now should I call you Bob or Rob?
Bob is fine.
Bob? Rob? Bob.
Bob is fine.
Bob Berukowitz. I love an alliteration, so that's good. Bob Berukowitz is in some ways the other coast's counterpart for nearly 3 decades, the head of the Washington Defender Association, a long time head public defender, also a long time trial lawyer and line attorney, someone who's walked this walk like Anthony for many decades and has a lot of perspective on changes over time and also on what it means to try to lead an office through these changing times. So I think having this East Coast, West Coast perspective, and Bob also has 50 slides, which he promises that he can get us through relatively quickly. So we're lucky to have some visual aids to help us understand this big problem. And then we're very lucky to have Alexandra, known as Sasha Natapov, who is also a former public defender, a federal defender, who for a number of years has been in the academy and has written many award-winning and very influential works on the criminal justice system. And in particular, she's here to speak to us today about misdemeanors and misdemeanor courts and processing as a big part of the challenge of indigent defense. So I'm going to let this incredibly knowledgeable, experienced, and influential group take over, and I'll start us off perhaps with a few questions and then open this discussion to the audience. Anthony.